Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this year in our Hispanic Heritage 2024 Forum. This year's topic is titled Monuments, Hispanic Memories. And my name is Maria Isabella Ruiz. I am a current sophomore at the University Institute of Technology. I'm pursuing a bachelor's degree in business accounting, and I am working today with the Historical Society as the moderator for this forum. Today we have two very special guests. If you could please introduce yourself, your occupation, and your education.
My name is Carlos Ruiz. I'm an industrial engineer. I'm originally from Nicaragua. Been living here for 15 years. And I'm glad to be here and share this forum.
Hi, my name is Ivan Omar. I was born in Cali, Colombia. I have a bachelor's degree in architecture from Universidad del Valle. I've been working for James Arguera PA for over 20 years. It's an architectural firm here in Elizabeth. And I'm also very happy to be collaborating here in the forum.
Thank you both for joining us this year. We really hope that you get to share some of your knowledge and experience with us today. And I think this year's topic, monuments, is really important, right? I mean, in relation to Hispanic Heritage Month, it's really important to share the history of those that come before us. And to understand it, right? And I think monuments are a really important part of understanding that history and kind of like making it valid, making it like present for other people to know about it. So let's talk about monuments. How would you define a monument? What are monuments to you?
To me, monuments are part of our history. Monument to me, it's something done to represent an achievement on something done in our past, in our history, to honor these achievements and to make sure that they're not forgotten, make sure that we relate to them in one way or another.
Yes, as a community, you want to have elements within the city, in the public spaces, that kind of shows the history of this community. You want people to remember what happened. You want newcomers to see the history of the city through those monuments. And you want the new generations also to learn about the history, and that can be done through the use of monuments.
Mm-hmm. I think to an extent monuments are also like a statement in physical form, right? I mean, they tell a story, they tell memories. And they hold kind of like a presence in the life of many people because they represent different types of things, right? It's depending on what history you're targeting. And it's fascinating when you realize how close they are to us, right? For example, right now we are in a monument, we are in a historical house, and it holds a lot of memory, it holds a lot of history that many people may not know. But that it's there, right? It's present, it's there for us, and we're supposed to know about it. So that's why we're here today, right? To share a little bit more information on monuments and how they are important to us. So, talking about memories, can you share a monument that you have visited recently?
So I spent a couple of days in DC, and we did all the monuments in DC. It's really fascinating. To see how much history is there. So it was an experience that I really enjoy, and it makes you realize how important these monuments are, because there's a story behind each one of them. So it's really something that I really enjoy.
Yes, I like to go to New York a few times. I usually use the path. And when you use the path, I go to World Trade Center, and just as you come up from the subway, you're in the Oculus. This is a building that has a functionality. It's a transportation hub, it's a mall, but it's also a monument. It is a monument to the resilience of the area after such a tragic event. You got this wing-like structure sort of rising from there, all white. So it gives you a little bit of emotion of what happened there, and it's a really interesting way in where a building can also be a monument.
Yeah.
Right. I also recently visited the Statue of Liberty, so I kind of like being there reminded me of how important monuments are and how they really share the history of so many people. You also start understanding how people really see monuments and why they are important to them. I mean, it's really fascinating to see how just that one structure can tell you so much about a specific group of people or a country in general, right?
Right, and actually, I also work inside a monument. The James Square Architectural Office is actually across the street at the Bonnell House. Bonnell House is a house from the 1600s that has a lot of history of Elizabeth. It shows the progress the city has taken. What it, it has a lot of the history, I guess, of this area, and it shows how important Elizabeth has been, how old it is. It has a very old history. And it's actually funny when you tell people going on inside the office that it's a house from the 1600s. It's thankfully for the Historic Society of Elizabeth that actually they maintain it, and you as somebody that lives here or as a visitor can actually go in these houses and see the history from the city.
Yeah, and I think one memory I do have about these two houses is that you drive by here or walk by here a lot, and you see them, but you don't really realize the meaning that they hold. So it also tells you about how important it is to look around you and be aware of your surroundings, right? So that you can learn about the history of them. Because I only started learning about them when I finally got to actually interact with people from the Historical Society. But these are very important properties, and with time I have really learned a lot about the history, not only of the city, but of the US and how it contributes to the history of America itself, right? As you lived here, what monument holds a special memory in your mind?
So, being from Nicaragua, you learn about the history of the country when you're in school. And there is a piece of our history very important for which they made a monument, and it's with Andres Castro. Andres Castro was a peasant that during a battlefield in Nicaragua when the foreigners were trying to take the land, he ran out of ammunition. He didn't have any more ammunition, and he picked up a stone and he killed a soldier, a foreigner soldier, and that moment became so iconic. And inspire the rest of the people fighting that, they end up winning the battle and kicking out the foreigners out of their land. And so that specific monument, and the history behind it, is very special to me. And I'm really passionate about remembering and just going in there, and the entire facility just brings a feeling of ownership to the country where you're from.
In my case, I would also revert to a place in Cali, Colombia. It's called Cristo Rey. It's a statue of Christ, it's also with extended arms, just like the Cristo Redentor in Brazil. And it's up in the mountain. You always see it. It's near downtown. The streets are actually aligned, so when you're in the street, you're always looking at it. But it actually, I started appreciating it even more when I left. As I came back, seeing it again, reminding me of home, reminding me of all the time when I was growing up there. So that one, has that special emotion in me. That's why I remember it a lot more than maybe others.
Right, and it kind of holds a personal meaning to you, right?
Correct.
You left your country and then you go back and it's like, oh, it's there again.
Yes.
People happy see it.
Yeah.
But then that brings us to how markers are not only a representation of world history, but also of personal history, right? People represent monuments represent a lot of history to different group of individuals, and you probably have your own monument that you feel makes you proud. So can you share that monument and why? Why does that monument makes you proud?
Cristo Redentor is a monument that you have it in Brazil. We have our own in Nicaragua, and here in Ivano they have their own in Colombia as well. Being a Christian coming from a Christian culture. I find it, very relatable that, we have this monument in different countries, and it really gives you the feeling that we have more in common than we think. And being a religious person and being Cristo Redentor in different places is something that I feel really proud of belonging to the religion that I belong to, but also knowing that I share this with other people. It's something that makes me proud.
I'll go with something local, with Statue of Liberty. That is such a great symbol of freedom, and it's a great symbol for immigrants. So as an immigrant, I do have a little more attachment to that. Especially around this time, there's this negative connotation regarding immigrants. Yet there is this monument nearby from the 1886, representing what the country says it is. We're a country of freedom. We're a country that we built with immigrants and welcoming them on the New York Harbor. So it does give me a great pride, and it helps me again through this time seeing such symbol from a long time ago, where they show the importance of immigrants in this country.
And I don't know if you felt that way the first time that or the second, or whenever you go to Statue of Liberty, that it represents probably more the immigrant history of the Europeans who came here, right? So as Hispanics, probably more harder to understand, how it represents us, right? Because it's not directly targeted to us, but it targets immigrants themselves. So I think when you finally get there, you understand how it meant so much to the people who are in this country, because it meant hope, right? And that's something that every immigrant is looking for when they arrive to this country.
Right.
So how you identify monuments that mark an important moment for your identity as Hispanic?
Do I identify? Well, I think monuments, as a Hispanic, whenever you find a monument that you feel or that represented, you're definitely identify yourself with. I personally, I walk into Central Park and I see the statue of Simón Bolívar, immediately I relate to it, being Hispanic, for what Simón Bolívar represents to the Latin American community, to Hispanics in general. I think it's something that I find really related to and proud of. So I really find that to be very important, and to make sure that everybody understands the history behind it.
I actually had a similar view with that statue, similar emotion, I guess. I found it by chance walking around trying to get to Central Park, and you start seeing this sculpture of a man on a horse, and that looks familiar, and I go close to it, and that's Simón Bolívar. I'm like, wow, okay. Then on the left is Jose Marti. So it's basically one of the very few times that I've been in front of a monument and I felt represented. So Statue of Liberty a little bit is to him as an immigrant, Simón Bolívar as a Hispanic.
Yeah.
There are very few times, but that was a very interesting find that day when I stumbled upon it.
Is there any monument outside the U.S. that you identify with?
Well, like the one, the Cristo Rey in Colombia, that was the big one for me. I guess outside the U.S., I love Eiffel Tower, for example. But identifying is a little difficult. Okay, maybe La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. That one, they're still building it, so it's a monument that hasn't been finished. It's also a church, so it's a building, but it's a monument to the resilience of the Christian people and Catholic people. So as Hispanics, we're very Catholic and Christian. It does have some representation there.
So the next question that I have is for you, Ivan, and if you could answer from the perspective of an architect, and as you mentioned earlier, someone who works in a monument, in a historical house. Can you share what makes a monument relevant, whether it's the beauty or the way it is built, the material that they use, the form? Can you share a little bit how that is important?
Right. Those are great tools to build your monument. But what really makes the monument relevant is the way they bring the emotion on the viewer, the way they try to tell the story about the event or about the person or the achievement, and how they bring out that emotion in the viewer. So that's what really makes it a special monument, even more than just the form or materials, which are more like a technical part of it. And that's why it also is very difficult to build a monument. Artists, that's a big struggle. You could do too much or too little. The key is the emotion that you feel. Just like when you stand in front of the Statue of Liberty, or Cristo Rey, or Cristo Redentor, or La Sagrada Familia, there is an emotion clearly, so that's where the monument is successful.
And I guess to an extent also the location where it is.
Correct. Yes, that's very important.
It's something that you have to think about as an architect.
Right.
I mean, you experience it when you go to 9/11 monument, right? You're there, and you see all what happened, all the tragedy, and you see all the names surrounding, the area where the building was. It's the emotion that it brings. It's just,
Definitely. And the location has a lot to do with it.
Of course.
Yes.
And Ivana, can you share how a monument shares a story? And that could also relate to, the way it's built, right? But how do you think a monument shares a story or tells a story?
Right. Sometimes it's just very literal. I mean, there's a plaque, and there's a story there written of what the monument is representing. Statue of Liberty is a great example. It does have a plaque. It has a book. There's words and information there. But then you also have elements that start bringing some emotion to the person. Like the Statue of Liberty, she has a torch. It's a guiding light to freedom. She has the crown with the 7 spikes representing the 7 continents and seas. She has the broken shackle at her feet, breaking out of oppression. So these are elements that as a viewer you start seeing, and it makes it even more important and brings a lot more emotion. Like the monument that you spoke about, the memorial pool in Ground Zero, the emptiness, right? This is the footprint of the building that was there, no longer there. It's the lack of something in that space that brings the emotion. Then you get the water, we give you a little bit of peace, and then the names, which then bring it to earth, bring the reality of what happened there. So it's that using all that to create those emotions that make the monument important. There's another monument in New York by the waterfront at the tip. It's called the Immigrants, and it's a group of immigrants, and so the emotion is portrayed as the way the bodies are, the emotions on the face. It's a group of people, so you get that is from the way the sculpture try to bring emotion through facial expressions and through body expressions. So these are a few of the many ways that monuments can try to tell the story and hopefully bring some emotion into it, or help you relate to it if that's something that that history of it is related to you.
And Carlos, you like Ivana both of you are active members of the Hispanic community. We live in Elizabeth, right? And there's a very large population of Hispanics here. So from the perspective of a Hispanic, can you share why monuments may be important for the Hispanic community?
So we as Hispanic, we really like to relate to achievements from our history. So, when you have a monument that tells a story, about us, we pride ourselves in it. We relate to it. So, having a monument that tells a story where we come from, or have a monument that brings whatever situation was for the monument to be built for. I think for us, it's very important, and we relate to it because it not only tells other people, why the monument is there, but it also makes you relive it. So you visit it and you relive and you try to insert yourself in that part of history. So that's very important.
Do you have any comments on that question?
Yeah, to all communities, monuments are really important. But I think for the Hispanic community is also especially important because of the lack of representation that we have. Actually, going through this forum, that's one of the things that I've made me aware of. Kind of, it might have been in the back of my mind, but now I see it, and that's why I think it's even more important for our community.
And I think that also brings us to the next question, which is whether the Hispanic community enjoys and recognizes the importance of these monuments and of public spaces. And I think that also relates to, that feeling of like not having enough monuments. So, can you share whether you think the Hispanic community recognizes monuments enough?
We do recognize it, but not to the extent that we probably should. But a lot has to do because we lack a lot of them. We don't have a lot monuments that represent us. So, but I do feel that if we did, I think that we'll be recognized and would be something that the Hispanic community would relate to. Again, I go back to my previous answer. Wherever you feel represented, it's something that you cherish and you really relate to.
Yeah, that kind of made me ask myself, why aren't we represented as much? And I think as an immigrant, you sometimes don't fully feel that you belong, and I think that has caused that we were not really looking for or thinking that we should be represented in the public spaces of this place. If you don't feel fully belonging to it, then you don't feel like it's yours, then you're not pushing for representation at those public spaces. And I think that's what we need to change a bit. Understand that we've had a long history in this country. We've given a lot to this country, where a lot of us are here. And we should be a little more represented in terms of with monuments. So, because again, it's very important for the community that has been here for a long time, and you can clearly see there's not that many for us.
I think it's also part of also recognizing and appreciating the monuments that we do have. And that represents, because then when we share that information with other people, then they kind of like feel encouraged to know more about monuments, and maybe that also asks, or kind of like wakes them up in the sense that, I think that we do need more monuments and we should push for it, right? And I don't know if you know, but there are also a lot of monuments here in the US that kind of like represent the history of or Hispanic heritage, even before the Mayflower, so Puerto Rico. And it's really interesting that not many people know about these monuments and what they mean, but it's there, right? Our history is there, or maybe we need more monuments that are like more current or related to our current history, and that represents us as a whole rather than just a specific group of people. But when we talk about Hispanic monuments, it is widespread to reference pre-Hispanic monuments, like Chichen Itza, for example. What do you think monuments like this are still relevant to us, to our community?
There's this notion that we have in Egypt, we have the pyramids. These people were really brilliant, very smart. But we have our own. We have Machu Picchu. We have monuments in Yucatan, Mexico, like what you mentioned, and we have more in Honduras. So it's just amazing that these monuments and the way they were made and the history behind each one of them. So I think it's very important because it also tells the story about we have some brilliant people, in our heritage. These people had so much technical skills and ideas. They knew about all kinds of things, astronomy, architecture as well, and they did all these amazing things, that I think by having these monuments and knowing their story, we learn more about where we come from. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Those pre-Hispanic monuments like Chichen Itza are great pride for us, as we can see as our ancestors were also great civilizations. There's, like you said, there's a preconceived notion that Europeans brought all progress, all development, but there's clear example that civilization here had already advanced knowledge of many things, even more than sometimes the Europeans in terms of how they live in nature. I think they were a little more in touch with that than even the Europeans. So they're very important for us because we can see that we come from great ancestors and we can have great pride on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you identify any monuments here in Elizabeth or in your county or New Jersey in general that you identify with, or maybe that you feel represent you, or just that you have seen?
Right. I started, nothing came up when I thought about it. So I do work near the Waynefield Scout Plaza, and I know there are a bunch of monuments there. I think that's where Elizabeth mostly puts their monuments. So I went through it. I only found two. I found General Jose Antigas. He had a crucial role in the independence of Uruguay. And then there's one of Jose Marti, also great importance for Cuban independence. Those were the only monuments that I kind of found in Elizabeth. Then I try to think about New Jersey and try to look for them. I only found the Carranza Memorial in Tabernacle. It's Emilio Carranza is a Mexican pilot, and he crashed on a flight from New York to Mexico City at that site. It was back when the Wright brothers were doing journeys. And I did not find that many monuments that would represent us or that have a connection with. So it's kind of a wake up for me that we're a large community, and yet I could not find more monuments.
Yeah, I didn't have the luck that he had. I mean, I didn't do my homework as well as he did, because I did search for a monument that I can relate to. Unfortunately, I couldn't find anything nearby except the one, like I said, in Central Park with Simón Bolívar. So I think there's a lack of monuments that represents us nearby or even in the Union County. And as a big community that we are, I think we should definitely do something about it, because we have a story to tell, and I'm sure there are several monuments that can tell that story.
Right. And that idea of liking monuments, it's a fact, we like monuments. But that also brings us to the next question, which is what kind of monument do you think would tell the story of us Hispanics, and where would you put it?
I don't have a monument per se, but I do have concepts, that would definitely, bring the community represented. That will be, unity, kindness, resiliency, something that, that could stand out, especially during the difficult times we're living. We need something that can bring us together. And I don't know what this monument will look like, but, I would like to have that, meaning as a community. I think it will be something that will definitely represent us.
Right, I would love to see a monument that kind of unites us, that kind of has what unites us as a community. That shows the resiliency that we have, that shows the history in this country, long history in this country, the achievements that we've been able to have in the country. So something less specific to a region in North America or South America or Central America or the Caribbean, but something more representing us as immigrants that come to this country, evolved here, progress here. We have kids here. Now our kids are Hispanic American. It's a lot of stuff to put in a monument, but it can be done and it should be done. And we can reference history stuff, historic events, but I think it's time for us to have something that just represents us as a community.
Yeah, I agree.
In terms of location, like say we were saying in Elizabeth, well, the Winfield Scott Plaza is where they have a lot of the monuments. It's in downtown. It's in front of City Hall. The high school is in front, so hopefully, they start learning about immigration through the monument. So I would say that would be a great location for it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned immigration, and I think a good monument could probably be something that represents our experience as immigrants, right? Like coming to this country and fighting for having a good life for our families, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely need that monument, and it's probably best to have one that represents us as a whole, not exactly just one targeted group. And I think that this entire conversation brings us to the last question, which is, what did you learn from doing your research, and from also I guess it was like you mentioned earlier, a wake-up call, right? To actually finding monuments that you can identify with, and monuments that are important to not only the Hispanic community but to other communities as well. So, what did you learn, or what do you recognize doing the research and just learning about monuments in general?
So personally, I find myself that a little embarrassed that I haven't done as much research as I should have. There's so much history, there's so much to tell, there's so much to learn. As a Hispanic, I feel that we need to be more involved, and we need to be more represented. I think this country has given us a lot of opportunities, and we should give something back. And when I say give something back, it's something that we can share with everybody else to know, and the way we contribute to this country. I think it is very important that we have monuments that tell the story, that really give the opportunity of all the people to learn a little bit about us and about our history.
Yes, it's very similar. My experience of the shock of not really seeing that before, that we're really not that represented in terms of monuments, and that we really. First, we need to look for them, find them, does it connect with you? And then seeing that as a community, we really don't have a monument that we can go to. And I think as immigrants, we just need to start thinking that, we belong here. I mean, and personally, I've been in this country now longer than I've been in Colombia. Yeah. I have a daughter that was born here. So I belong here, right. And public space is part of me too. I'm part of that open. My experience, the public space here is also for me too, as well as the Hispanic community. So we should have that kind of representation for our community.
We should also start seeing what little things about different monuments we can relate to, kind of in a sense that maybe it doesn't represent your entire history, but it represents one part of it that you can really appreciate.
Yeah.
I think I also learned a lot from doing research on monuments, and I also learned a lot about the history, right? And that brings back to the fact that monuments do tell you the history of things. I think we had a really nice conversation, and I want to thank you both for sharing your experience and your ideas and all these facts too. You also share facts, and it's an honor to share the different definitions and monuments that the Hispanic community has and doesn't have. because it also emphasizes our need for more monuments and for representing our history and how rich we are in monuments as well, in a sense, to an extent. I want to thank the Historical Society for holding this forum, and I also want to thank our partners. Thank you to the 2024 Hart Grant from the Union County Board of Commissioners. This program would not have been possible without their support. And thank you to the team who worked really hard to make this recording possible. And I hope you had a very good time with us in this conversation and that you learned from it. And please do your own research on monuments too. They're very important. And maybe you find that monument that holds a personal meaning to you, maybe not as Hispanic, but as, someone from a different group. But monuments are important to all of us. They should be important to all of us. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.